We're now in the third week of April, and I'm just going to do a little YouTube on these borders. Now things are really moving on quite quickly at the moment, and this is my calamagrostis border that I term the calamagrostis border. So it's a calamagrostis acutiflora calamagrostis, and it's a grass that I talk about a hell of a lot. And the reason being is if you're a bit of a novice or a newcomer and you'd like to get into ornamental grasses, but you're a little bit scared, because a lot of people seem to fear them. And I don't understand why, really. They think that they're very invasive, they're very boring, etc., etc. And they're really, really not. Once you understand grasses and how to use them, then you can't live without them. Well, I certainly can't live without them. And I've been into ornamental grasses for at least 25 years, maybe. When they first started becoming popular, I was already into them. And this particular one is a sterile form. And at the moment, it is romping away like mad. And this is why I like it, because it's quite an early season grower. But this year it seems to be better than ever. And I'm putting this down in part to a mulch I put down in autumn. A mulch that's new to me by Plant Grow UK. And it is absolutely fantastic. So if you're looking for something peat-free as a mulch, then check them out. They are online. And I got that off them. And it is fantastic. It's making quite a few borders grow quicker than I'd expected, actually. I didn't expect it to go so quick. Now, one thing I will warn you is be careful when you mulch borders, or especially grass borders, because you can over nitrogenize them, you can overfeed them with mulches. So don't try and put it on twice in the year. Sometimes I'll tell people to put them on in autumn and again in spring, but I'd be very, very careful with that, because if you've got grasses like the calamagrostis, you can end up getting them way too tall and floppy and lax and weak. But if you give them the right amount, so probably just in the spring or just in the autumn, then you will end up with a good balance. If you look there, you can see the mulch there, actually. It's really good friable stuff. I don't usually blow the trumpet of anybody's mulch, but I do that one. I'm so impressed with it. So this calamagrostis is going to make it to around 5, 6, even up to 7 feet. And as I've said, it's a sterile form of grass. So it's definitely worth having. It's a bit of a designer's dream. I always say this, and it is a designer's dream because, and it's Amish's dream by the looks of it as well. Look at him. He's loving it. He doesn't know what this is going to grow like. He's new to it. But that grass is going to make, it made 6.5 foot for me last year, nearly 7, one or two other plants. And it should look very impressive in the next couple of months, definitely. Now, it has several different phases that it goes through. One of the phases is, and if you look back on my videos, you will see another video of the calamagrostis that I did when it was in seed. And if you look at a lot of my videos, you will see this in the background, swaying in the wind. It always reminds me of cornfields when they get to a certain size, when it starts blowing, and it's really, really nice. So the seed heads go through a couple of phases, and eventually they turn a straw or buff coloured. The whole plant dies off, but doesn't die away, doesn't drop away. Now, the taller things that you can see in here, these are alliums. This is summer drummer. And I'd said last year that I thought I'm going to remove those because they're way better than the calamagrostis at this point. But now I've got these grasses fed better. It's competing. Summer drummer itself will make about 6 foot, typical allium type flower head on top. And I noticed the other day that one's already producing one of the seed heads. Now that won't come out yet, that's way off from coming up yet. but it does complement the calamagrostis absolutely beautifully. Now there's an Euphorbia called Tawny King, and if you can get an Euphorbia Tawny King, that's Tawny, Tawny King, as I have here. This is a tiny plant at the moment. In fact, it almost looks like the calamagrostis, but it's not. Now what I was going to say about that one is, if you can get hold of that, get it as a complementary plant, because Tawny King comes out, I think it's June, July or August, and it complements the grass perfectly at that phase, because the colour of the Tawny King flower head, which is an Euphorbia, red hot pokers to some, is the same sort of buff colour to a degree as the flower head at that point, and it takes on some very, very similar tones, so it's definitely worth getting. So if you can use if you want a complementary plant, that is the one to get. So that's a bit about calamagrostis. So that's Calamagrostis acutiflora Carl Forster. There are others, different types. In fact, I've walked past one that you probably think's a Calamagrostis Carl Forster. It's not. This is Waldenbush, another good grass to get, an absolutely stunning grass to get. Well worth it. And there are other variegated forms, and the golden form as well, called Eldorado, Calamagrostis Eldorado, of which I have them all. But they're not here, so I can't really show you those at the minute. So we've done a bit of planting up round here, and as you know, I'm working on this area at the moment. And I just absolutely love these sleepers. These are the traditional old sleepers, and they're wonderful. Now I've noticed that the Euphorbia that I moved, which is black pearl, keeps going through these floppy phases. My fault, I've lifted it when I shouldn't have done, and I should have took off all of those flowers. And I think likely this weekend I'm going to remove all those flowers to let that plant itself perk up. It should be fine, because there's one or two in there quite rigid still that are absolutely fine. So I've got lots of little bits and bobs. And this one is Deschampshire Gold Tower. And the reason I like Gold Tower is because it's just a good doer, and it lasts for quite a long time. Its seed head lasts for quite a long time. And that rusty colour behind you, you'll find that the seed head itself actually resembles that colour. So it's a really good match. Euphorbias are looking great. There's another Euphorbia there next to Amish there, which seems to be dying off at the bottom, and there's something's happened to that one. It's not the same as what Black Pearl is that I've showed you a minute ago. That one there, it's not doing the same sort of thing. I think it's been caught by some frost, or it's been knocked. In fact, it could have been knocked by Amish, and those little bits are dying away. But it's quite an healthy plant, and I'm going to take lots of cuttings from it, and I shall show you just how to do that as we get further along. This is just a selected form. They all come in different shapes and sizes, these Wolfenii, and they're really good. They're really a Mediterranean spurge, but they look good in any border. In flower borders, look absolutely stunning. So that's really good. And Wolfenii is a subspecies. But it's great because it produces, I've got lots of different varieties of this from the same garden where I picked one or two seedlings out, and they're all showing different attributes. I tend to go for the bluey greens rather than just the plain greens. This wasn't the best one that I found, to be quite honest, but it's turned out to be quite a nice flower head on it, so it's very good. So it comes through Euphorbia caraceus. And as I said, it's a subspecies called Wolfenii. And Wolfenii, the difference between the two is Wolfenii tend to be more smaller, squat. A very famous one is one called Humpty Dumpty. But caraceus is a lot taller, a lot leggier, and not in my experience anyway, not as tight as this one, as tight forming. So if you're after caraceus, then you'll get a lot taller plant than that. But nevertheless, they're both really, really good. So this Phagosdowic Gold is now budding up quite well at the minute. I was hoping it'd be a bit further along itself, but I'm not worried about it. It's doing quite well. So I'm happy about that. And within the next, looking at it. Probably another month and a half, those leaves will be out, and they are, as it suggests, its name suggests, they are yellow or gold coloured. So I talked about this sorbus that I bought just 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, and if you look back in a couple of videos ago, you'll see this as I put it in. And the leaves are, well, I'm well impressed with this one, to be quite honest. I never had Olympic flame before, but the leaves are impressing me at the moment because they're so big. And every day I look at it, it just seems bigger and bigger. And it's called Olympic flame apparently because of its shape and size and the way it grows its leaves. So it tends to produce them from the top, so it keeps going like this. And it's very columnar, so it's beautiful, and it has some lovely oranges, yellows and reds as it goes into its autumn coat. So that's a way off yet. I'm a big sorbus fan anyway, and I've never been able to get hold of this one, but it definitely grows different to the other ones that I've got. It's a very healthy specimen as well. It come from a good supplier as well. And I'm trying to think which one it came from, and I'll try and tell you so that you can run along yourself and get it from the same person. Frank Matthews. So it's Matthews, and they supply lots of garden centres. So if they haven't got it in, they can get it in for you. And what else? Right, so this is, as I've said, the calamagrostis calforster border. And then I guess the floating deck side, we really need to call the floating deck border, although it is part of the longer border. So in general, from the beginning of it here, right to the back, where it stops at the back through there, that is the longer border. And everything's starting to grow now. This Aquilegia has gone absolutely nuts this year. It's doing really well. And again, I'm putting that down to the mulch that I put down. Then we've got Achillea. I was going to say about that one. No, it's not Achillea. Alchemilla mollis, sorry. We've got Alchemilla mollis. Now, that's the boring, basic one that you all probably are scared of again, because it can be very self-seeding and goes everywhere. But it's a beauty, nevertheless. And when it's got raindrops on it, as that one has, it just produces a really, really nice look. Produces a yellow flower. Now, if you want to prevent that from going all over the place, let the yellow flowers come up and nip them off before they have a chance to set seed. It will keep sending up new ones, so you've got to keep on top of it as well. But keep nipping them off, and then you should prevent it from getting too far on. I think that's an erodium. Or is it? No, it's not. Sorry. No, I've just moved that one. That is a lovely geranium called Bill Wallace. And it produces just a stunning flower. And I love it, this one. And it will self-seed gently around, and I'm hoping for that. I was hoping it would have done it last year, but I've not found anything from it. But I live in hope. So we've got Euphorbia amygdaloides purpurea that I keep talking about, and it's superb. It looks good. It looks good against that green. I've got some further up, well, one further up the garden that's got some tulips behind it, some red tulips, about 5 foot behind it. But when you look through the lens of the camera, it looks fantastic. They look like a really complementary couple of plants. Now this one here, this is Phalictrum, and it's called Phalictrum ellin. And that will make 7, 8 feet quite easily. Produces really tiny little flowers on top of it, so whitey, yellowy, purpley flowers. And Phalictrum ellin is one of the best. There are loads of different types of Phalictrums, and I have another one called Anne, which is supposedly a seedling from this, and it's supposed to be better. Now, what we're saying is it can't be a seedling because Phalictrum ellin is a sterile cultivar. But who knows, it may have come from the same 2 plants that ellin come from. And I note that the person who grew the Phalictrum Anne had both of those 2 parents. And I'm trying to think which they are. One's called Roche brunianum, And the other one, I can't remember, but it's the yellow form. It'll come to me soon. And they produced Phylloxera Ellen. So that's just a little bit of a sideline there for you. So we've got Eupatorium here, and this is Eupatorium Gateway. Now the sticks, as you can see, they're still sticks. They remain sticks. I have had a look. There is some new growth in there. I'm not going to get over the border to show you, but there is some new growth. It tends to be a bit later coming up anyway, so I'm not worried about that one. It'll do well, and it has a lovely scent, and the butterflies and the bees absolutely love it. Now I'm doing it no justice because I'm showing you 2 sticks, really, or 3, 2.5 sticks there that are dead. But when that gets going in summer, I'll come back to it again and show you why I've planted it there. So this is Miscanthus memory that I keep showing in all my videos, definitely last year. The main plant is back there, just beyond those little canes there. They're actually showing me the idea of what I'm hoping is Elianthus Cape Neck Star, and I can see one now. I'm not going to go across there, but I can see some new growth coming up there, so that should be okay. And then the spiky looking thing, or the grassy looking thing there, that's an allium. That's Allium spherocephalon. Again, be careful what you wish for, because alliums are very, very invasive when they set seeds, and you must remove the seed heads just before they go over if you don't want them all over. They will multiply from the actual bulb itself. They produce bulblets. Let's lift you over and have a look. So that full clump there is produced from possibly the first bulb, and that bulb multiplies each time, sends up loads of flowers, and then I'll chop them off and stop it from self-seeding everywhere. That's the elder, the black elder. That's Black Tower, and it's fantastic. It's coming lovely now. Another 4 weeks and that'll be double that in the leaf, and it'll then start to look the part. So the cow feeder, or one of the cow drinkers is now here, as you know if you've been watching my videos. And we've got this hoster, still not sure which one it is, probably Alcium, probably Big Daddy, could be anything. I keep referring back to these 2 types because I bought a lot of them at one point. Now this is another grass, the Japanese forest grass, and it's called Hakanakloa. But this particular form is called Samurai, and it has kind of a striped formation in the leaf. And these are really good grasses, and when they get a little bit more mature, they make good thickets. Here's one that's a different one. This is Oriole sulcata, I think it is, and this is again is an Hakanakloa. Now these are brilliant. They produce really, really fine seed heads, but look fantastic. But the reason I love it is because it produces like a 2 foot by 2 foot grass, ornamental grass, does well in most positions, particularly well under shade, under a tree. It won't care. So that's probably one worth looking out. Hakanakloa. Macra is just a plain green one, which I also have. And I'm trying to think what other varieties I've got. I've got several, to be quite honest, because I love it that much. This border is still new, as you know. There's another Euphorbia there. That's a bluer form. Again, I haven't got the labels. I bought loads of hostas. I'm sure I kept the labels, but birds pick them out. So when you've got labels in your garden, I tend to keep them, as I have that geranium, which is Silostemum. I keep them until I definitely know where that plant is, and then I'll remove them if the birds don't remove them first. So this is a little Steeper Gigantea. Steeper Giganteas, you should try and plant them where the sun sets. So if the sun's setting on the Gigantea, try and get it there, because once the seed heads come up, you'll see why. It looks wonderful in the late evening sun in summer. The seed heads just zing out and ping. So that's Asian Wonder, that bamboo. And remember, I planted those not so long back. They're looking good. They look a bit shoddy to you probably on here, but they are looking good. I've got 2 of those, one behind me as I film this. And that's really nice. Now that noise that you just heard is so irritating. You'll often hear that in the background. Some people have got nothing better to do. But anyway, we'll not moan about them. Right, so this is Persicaria, and I mentioned the other day it could be, well, it is Alpina, but I know it's Persicaria polymorpha, and it's coming up in leaf. The leaves get bigger and it gets taller, and it'll look really nice in this container, even though it doesn't need it. This is just, it's just to set it off really, and I had Eupatorium Gateway, if you remember last year, in that. But I've decided that I'm putting that in this year because I think it'll suit it better, and it has a white flower. Downside, as I've said before, is that it produces a flower that I think smells like fox pea. But nevertheless, it's a beautiful, beautiful plant, and it always goes back into the central clump. So although it may sprawl when it gets going, and it will come above that actual top, it'll come above that, well above that, it will always die back into the clump, and the clump will, year on year, get a bit wider each year, but it's worth having. It's no trouble at all as well, so there's not a lot to do with it, just it kind of almost collapses itself. That's the English yew again, and that's Taxus baccata standishi. I always thought it was an Irish one, but apparently it's an English one. I will redo some checking up on that, but I read recently that that's an English yew, but I thought it was an Irish one. I have two of those in this border, and there's the other one. This is a Astrantia. Absolutely love this one. This is the one I was gifted via Jill Richardson's sister from Jill herself, and it's just a selected form that Jill picked back out herself, the Jill Richardson group, and was passed on to me, and it is a stunner. And she claimed it was better than the other one available commercially. Not 100% sure if that's true, but it does produce the most stunning flower, and I would hope that the leaves would get a bit deeper than that, and they will over time. They'll get a bit darker on the edges. So what else we got? Oh, I've finally gone back to lupins. Now, I've always had lupins. I love lupins, but the slugs tend to love them. But I've decided we're going to get some more because they do complement grasses beautifully, and I really like them. At one point in my life, they were my favourite flower. So I've decided we'll go for that cottage garden look on this particular plant, because basically lupins are cottage garden plants, and they're great. Now that's Veronicastrum virginicum, and it's called pointed finger. Now I've noted that throughout the industry there is this one being sold as pointed finger, and it's probably not pointed finger. I'm hoping this one is, because I've seen the picture of it and it's come from a very good source that tends to keep them true, and it does point like a finger. A lot of the ones that I see sold as pointed finger tend to, rather than they should sit like that, are like that, going up as a typical Veronicastrum. But pointed finger has this great habit of pointing, so it does look like a pointed finger. But we shall see. It's new in. Let's hope they've got it right. That's Viburnum Davidii, and as I said, I think it's a seed-raised one, not the true Davidii. Even though Davidii is a type and a species, I don't think that's the right one. Okay, so there we go. Just thought I'd do that on this little border to show you how fast it's growing. 3rd week in April, and everything's away, looking great. It'd look even better if it had a little bit of sunshine on it, but it hasn't. It is what it is. So, there you go. For those that have made it this far, well done again. Pat on the back. I also have an Instagram account called agardenersjourney.1 if you want to check that out. And thanks for looking. And I'll talk to you on the next one. Ta-da.